Hey everyone. So, as we continue this series on common contradictory drawing advice or drawing principles, today we'll look at a really important one, and it especially has to do with drawing from observation. So, this one states you should know your subject, but you should forget what it is. Know your subject, but forget what it is. Now, let's see how this makes sense, and hopefully, you'll be able to take something from this that you can apply to your own work. So just a big thank you to everyone who supported my books, Penning Drawing Simple Guide and the complimentary Penning Drawing Workbook. They're both designed to guide and help you develop your skills, your techniques, and your fundamental understanding of penning and drawing. And also thanks to those who have taken a few seconds to leave reviews or feedback, whether it's on Amazon or Goodreads or wherever else online. A big thanks. Now, it's obvious you should always try to know the subject you're drawing as well as you can, right? So then, why should you try to forget what it is? And how do you do that anyway? Well, unlike in the last video of this series where forgetting meant knowing how to do something to the extent where it's like second nature. You don't have to constantly or consciously think about what you're doing while you're doing it. Now, in this case, you're forgetting in a different way. So let's take a look at both perspectives. Know your subject, but forget what it is. Now, what do we mean by knowing your subject in the first place? And why is it important? Now, it is essentially the same reason we say you should know the proportions of the head, or know basic anatomy, or the essentials of linear perspective, or color theory, and so on. Because by doing so, you enable yourself to draw the subject with a certain degree of confidence and ease and comfort. So let's take portrait drawing, for example. To know the head, you would study the proportions of the head, the face and the features. You would study anatomy, the planes of the head, the masses of the head, do studies of the skull to understand the underlying structure and so on. And of course, this goes for other subjects as well. If you wish to draw flowers, for example, it helps to understand the structure of flowers, some of their anatomy, how petals attach to the stem, the forms of leaves, and so on. Knowing this gives you confidence and command over your subject and enables the drawing process to be much more enjoyable and a less intimidating experience. Now, what do we mean by forgetting the subject? Why is it important, and how do we actually do that? Well, they say seeing is believing, but the opposite is also true. Sometimes we think we see what we believe is there because we have all these preconceptions in our minds of what certain things should look like. And oftentimes that's exactly what we draw instead of what's actually in front of us. Now let's take portrait drawing again as an example. Generally, we tend to want to make the eyes oval, right? Or like a convex lens with a perfectly horizontal axis and flat shapes, even when we see that an actual eye doesn't look anything like that. And this is because in our minds, we innately want to simplify things, to make them symmetrical and even. So this way they appear more regular and easier to control and just more predictable. So to combat this tendency in drawing, we have to try to forget what we know, so to speak, to defer or dispel the preconceptions in our minds and instead look for the basic visual elements that comprises the image. And this helps us to be more objective and actually draw what's in front of us. So we don't have these ideas of what the eye is supposed to look like, and that kind of distracts us from what we're looking at. Instead, we draw abstract elements. So, let's say, for example, you're drawing a hand or a portrait or a flower, whatever the subject is. You would forget what that thing is. You know what I mean? So you don't see a hand per se, or an eye, or a flower. Instead, you see the lines of the subject. You see shapes, the positive shapes, the negative shapes. You see values. You see value shapes. You see forms. You see masses, and so on. The visual elements that make up the image, and not necessarily what the thing is. Now, one of the main reasons why having this dual approach is very important, even though it may seem contradictory, they actually complement each other. And this is one of the cases where it's really applicable. You won't always be drawing the head where the general proportions are directly applicable. You know what I mean? Sometimes the head will be rotated or tilted in a way where you can't really apply or see the proportions that well. Or you won't be able to make out the anatomy that clearly. Or you won't be able to see the planes as distinctly as you normally would. In those cases, you have to resort to looking at it in an abstract way. You won't necessarily see the eye straight on. So for those times where it may be in an abstract position, it may be tilted, or you may be looking at it from a really extreme point of view, it's good to step back and say, okay, I'm not drawing the eye. I'm just drawing a collection of shapes. I'm just drawing a collection of values and lines and so on. And this enables you to still be able to put the image together. So it actually will still produce the image that you want. So yes, you are drawing the eye, you're drawing the head and so on, but sometimes from a particular angle, it won't necessarily apply. Your knowledge, what you know about it, won't apply as directly. And in those cases, it's important to be able to put all you know aside and look at it in an abstract way. Okay, everyone, so I hope you found something you liked in this video. And if you did, please remember to give the video a thumbs up. It really means a lot. And if you're new to my channel, remember to subscribe and turn on your notifications so you won't miss any new uploads. And also remember to follow me on Instagram. I usually upload new drawings up there. And as usual, guys, thanks so much for watching. Keep practicing, and I'll see you in the next video.